The slow decline. Grace Parker had always been the strong one in her circle, steady hands, quick wit, and a pace that left others trailing behind. At 62, she still wore her silver hair like a badge of honor and prided herself on being independent. But lately, something had shifted. It started with little things. The living room chair that had once been her reading nook suddenly felt deeper, heavier, like it was swallowing her whole. Getting up took effort, a small grunt, a push on the armrest, and a silent prayer that her knees wouldn't wobble. Stairs became her nemesis. One flight up to her bedroom left her breathless, her legs trembling as if she'd run a marathon. Grace told herself it was just aging, maybe a touch of arthritis, and powered through it. She ignored the signs. After all, she still did her morning walks, though shorter now, and she hadn't fallen. Not yet. But that changed on a rainy Tuesday morning. She'd bent down to pick up a dropped sock in the hallway. As she stood, her right leg gave out for a split second. She caught herself by grabbing the wall, her heart pounding in her chest. "Damn it," she whispered, shaken. What the hell was that? It wasn't pain. It was weakness. An emptiness in her legs she hadn't felt before. That night, she lay awake, replaying the moment in her mind. That near fall rattled her more than she wanted to admit. The next day, she called Mark Sullivan, a longtime friend and physical therapist who used to help her late husband after his surgery. "You're not falling apart, Grace," Mark said kindly when she visited his small clinic. "But you are dealing with muscle atrophy. Especially in your legs." She blinked. "I haven't stopped moving. I still walk every morning." Mark nodded. "That's good, but movement alone isn't enough. As we age, our muscles weaken if we don't feed them properly. It's a silent decline. Most people don't even notice it until they fall." Grace crossed her arms. "So what do I do now? Start lifting weights?" He chuckled. "That'll come later. First, we start with food." "Food?" she asked. Mark leaned forward, eyes twinkling. "You'd be amazed what the right food can do. Let's start with something simple, sweet potatoes. Fuel for the climb." "Sweet potatoes?" Grace raised an eyebrow as Mark pulled a small folder from his desk. "You were expecting magic beans?" he teased. "Listen, Grace, your muscles don't just need movement, they need fuel. And not just any fuel. They need the kind that lasts. That's where sweet potatoes come in." He handed her a page with recipes and nutritional notes. Grace skimmed it, skeptical. "Look," Mark continued, "as we age, our ability to store and use energy changes. Our muscles get tired faster. You're not weak because you're lazy. Your body's just not getting what it needs to endure." Grace nodded slowly. That made sense. She'd been feeling tired halfway through the day lately, even on days when she barely did anything. "Sweet potatoes are full of complex carbs," Mark said. "Unlike white bread or pasta, which spike your blood sugar and crash it, sweet potatoes release energy slowly. They keep you steady." He tapped the page. "Plus, they've got vitamin A, an antioxidant that helps repair muscle tissue. Your muscles tear a little every time you move, and when you were younger, your body fixed those tears quickly. Now, not so much. But this helps." Grace looked down at the photo on the page, mashed sweet potatoes with a sprinkle of cinnamon. It looked comforting. "So, I roast them?" she asked. "Roast them, mash them. Throw them in a smoothie if you're brave," Mark said. "Add them to soups. However you like. Just eat them regularly." He paused, then added gently, "You'd be surprised how much of this is reversible. But you've got to start now." That evening, Grace stopped by the market and picked out 4 plump, orange sweet potatoes. At home, she peeled and diced them, tossed them with olive oil, rosemary, and sea salt, and slid them into the oven. As they baked, the sweet, earthy aroma filled her kitchen. She ate quietly, each bite warming her from the inside out. Maybe this was how it started, not with medicine or therapy, but with dinner. Rebuilding strength. The next morning, Grace stood in front of her full-length mirror. Her robe hung loose at the shoulders, her legs pale and leaner than she remembered. Not in a graceful, aging way, but in a hollow, fragile way. She stretched one leg forward, then the other. They moved, but with hesitation, as if they no longer trusted themselves. Later that day, she returned to Mark's clinic. He greeted her with a wide grin. "Back for more sweet potato wisdom?" She chuckled. "I figured if I'm doing this, I might as well do it right." "Good," he said. Today's lesson, recovery and inflammation. He led her to a quiet corner of the clinic, where yoga mats were spread across the floor. Grace sat gingerly. "Sweet potatoes help more than just energy," he began. "They also help with recovery. As we age, our muscles don't bounce back the way they used to. The micro-tears from everyday movement, those need help healing." Grace nodded. She'd felt it, waking up stiff and sore after simply walking a bit more than usual. Vitamin A in sweet potatoes speeds up repair. That means fewer achy mornings and less stiffness. "But there's more," Mark said, sitting beside her. "There's inflammation." Grace sighed. "I've heard that word thrown around a lot lately." Mark gave her a knowing look. "Because it's the silent killer of mobility. Chronic inflammation weakens your muscle fibers bit by bit. It's what makes movements harder, slower, more painful. You can't see it, but you can feel it creeping in." He paused, then added, "Sweet potatoes have beta-carotene, an antioxidant that helps fight that inflammation. They basically protect your muscles from the inside out." Grace exhaled deeply. "So, I've got invisible enemies attacking my muscles, and the answer is sitting in my kitchen." "Exactly," Mark said with a smile. "Also, potassium. It keeps muscles from cramping and helps with coordination. Sweet potatoes have a ton of it." Grace's eyes lit up. "No wonder I've been waking up with those awful leg cramps." Mark leaned back on his palms. "Most people don't connect the dots. But the truth is, muscle strength starts in the kitchen, not the gym." That night, Grace added a baked sweet potato to her dinner again. No butter, just a sprinkle of sea salt and a dash of paprika. As she ate, she thought about what Mark had said. The decline had felt unstoppable, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe her muscles just needed something they hadn't had in years, a chance to heal. The grain of power. Grace's mornings used to start with coffee and silence. She'd sip slowly at her kitchen table, watching the light stretch across the floor. But lately, she found herself opening her recipe notebook before her second sip. Oats. That was today's mission. Mark had handed her another sheet after yesterday's visit, this one about a boring breakfast that was anything but boring once you understood its strength. She stirred a small pot on the stove. Oats simmering gently with a splash of almond milk. As the scent rose, warm and nutty, she remembered Mark's words. Oats are the unsung heroes, he had said. Everyone talks about protein. But energy is just as important. Without stable fuel, your legs give out before you even get moving. Grace had laughed. So, I'm not just tired, I'm underfueled. Exactly, he said. Most people load up on white bread or cereal and crash by noon. Oats release energy slowly, keeping you steady. No highs and lows. Just calm, sustained power. He had then leaned forward. More serious. And here's something people miss, iron and magnesium. Grace frowned. That's what's in spinach, right? Yep. But oats have both too. Iron carries oxygen to your muscles, so if you're low, your legs feel heavy, weak, like you're walking through mud. And magnesium? It keeps your muscles from cramping and spasming. Especially at night. Grace had nodded slowly. Those midnight wake-up calls from leg cramps suddenly made more sense. She poured the oats into a bowl, topping them with blueberries and a few chopped walnuts. The first bite was warm, slightly sweet, and comforting. More than food, it felt like repair. Later that day, she took the stairs instead of the elevator at her apartment complex. Just one flight. Nothing grand. At the top, her legs trembled slightly, but they held. She smiled to herself. The grain of power, she whispered. Not bad for breakfast. Green gold. Grace had always thought of avocados as a luxury. Something millennials spread on toast or served at brunch with poached eggs and a sprig of cilantro. Not something a widow in her 60s needed in her fridge. Until now. She stood in the produce aisle at Dawson's Market, her fingers gently pressing the skin of a ripe avocado. Green gold. Mark had called it. Avo what? Grace had asked during their last session. Avocados, Mark said, grinning. Muscle-building fat bombs. In the best way. Grace raised a skeptical brow. Aren't those just trendy? Trendy and powerful, Mark replied. Your muscles need healthy fats, especially as you age. Think of it like oil for your engine. Without it, everything stiffens and squeaks. He leaned in a little, his voice dropping. And inflammation, our old nemesis, avocados help with that too. Monounsaturated fats keep joints supple, muscles relaxed. And soreness at bay. Grace folded her arms. You make it sound like guacamole is the new ibuprofen. Mark laughed. Kind of. But there's more, potassium. Even more than bananas. You need potassium to keep your muscles contracting the way they should. Without it, you get that jelly leg feeling or sudden cramps that wake you up in the middle of the night. Grace winced at the memory. Don't remind me. And, he added, vitamin E. It protects muscle fibers from damage. Helps with recovery. Keeps your legs strong even when you push them a little. Back in her kitchen, Grace sliced the avocado in half, twisted it open, and marveled at the smooth green interior. She mashed one half onto whole grain toast, sprinkled a little sea salt. Then added a squeeze of lemon. Simple. Elegant. Her first bite was creamy and savory. It was the kind of food that didn't just feed, it soothed. That evening, Grace took a longer walk than usual, down to the park and back. When she climbed the hill to her house, she felt the burn. But something was different. Her legs didn't buckle or cramp. Instead, they felt stable. It was subtle. But to Grace, it was everything. Very strong. The first thing Grace noticed about the berries was their color, deep, rich, almost glowing in the bowl. She had picked them herself that morning at a nearby farm stand. Strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, a vibrant mix that looked more like art than food. She rinsed them gently. Then poured them into a glass dish, remembering Mark's voice from yesterday. "These little guys," he had said, holding up a single blueberry between his fingers, "are some of the most powerful muscle defenders on the planet." Grace squinted. "From that tiny thing?" Mark nodded. "It's not about size. It's about antioxidants, specifically, anthocyanins. They fight oxidative stress, which is one of the leading causes of muscle breakdown as you age." She tilted her head. "Oxidative stress, like rust on a car?" "Exactly," Mark said. "Your muscles take damage every day, just from walking, lifting, even standing. Over time, that stress wears them down. But berries act like a shield, slowing that damage." Grace looked down at her hands. "So these help keep legs strong?" "Not just strong," he replied. "Resilient. Flexible. They reduce inflammation, improve circulation, and even support recovery after strain. It's like a cleaning crew and a repair team all in one." Back home, Grace sprinkled the berries over a bowl of oats, adding a dollop of Greek yogurt for protein. With each bite, she felt something unexpected: joy. The tartness of the berries mixed with the creaminess of the yogurt made for a perfect pairing. Later that afternoon, she cleaned out the guest room, bending, reaching, stretching, and only noticed afterward how much she had moved. No soreness. No tightness. Just movement, smooth and simple. As the sun dipped low, Grace sat by the window with the last few berries in a small cup. She popped one into her mouth and smiled. They weren't just pretty. They were power. The sunny secret. Grace stood by her back door, letting the morning sun touch her face. It had become part of her routine, 10 minutes of light before breakfast. Not just for warmth or comfort, but for something much deeper. Something she hadn't even thought about until Mark brought it up. "Vitamin D," he said during one of their sessions, handing her a printed chart. "People think it's just about bones. But it's your secret weapon for strong legs." Grace raised an eyebrow. "From sunlight?" Mark nodded. "Sunlight, fatty fish, egg yolks, mushrooms, sure. But mostly the sun. The problem is, most people don't get enough of it, especially as they age." He leaned forward, his tone serious. "Vitamin D helps your muscles communicate. It works like a bridge between your nerves and your muscle fibers. Without it, messages get fuzzy, reactions slow down, and your balance starts to suffer." Grace thought back to the time she missed a step at the grocery store. That shaky, uncertain moment. The kind of moment that sticks. "I've felt that," she said quietly. "Exactly," Mark replied. "Low vitamin D makes you feel unsteady, weak, even tired. And it increases the risk of falls. But when your levels are strong, you're stronger. That afternoon, Grace cracked an egg into a skillet, letting the yolk stay whole. She added a few mushrooms and a sprinkle of cheese. Lunch was simple, but purposeful. Outside, she pulled a chair into the sun. Just 10 minutes. She closed her eyes and breathed in the warmth. It felt like medicine. In the evening, she walked to her friend Lily's house, something she hadn't done in months. The walk was longer than expected, but her legs didn't complain. She felt grounded. The next time she saw Mark, she told him with a grin, "Turns out sunshine really is good for the soul, and the muscles." He winked. "Told you. The silent thief, inflammation." That night, Michael lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow and steady above him. His legs throbbed, not sharply, but in a dull, persistent way. It was like a background hum, always there. Jake's words echoed in his mind, "It's not just age. It's your body under attack." The next morning, Michael found himself back at Jake's, coffee mug in hand. "All right," he said, leaning against the counter, "I bought the berries. Ate them too. But I still feel like a tin man." Jake nodded. "That's because we've only tackled half the problem. The other half is inflammation." He grabbed a marker and sketched something quickly on a small whiteboard hanging on the pantry door. A knee joint, surrounded by red scribbles. "This," he said, pointing, "is what chronic inflammation looks like. It's not the kind of swelling you can see. It's internal. It eats away at mobility, stiffens your joints, and makes every step harder. It's slow, sneaky, and worse than muscle loss when it comes to your legs." Michael rubbed his knee subconsciously. "So what do I do?" Jake opened the fridge and pulled out a large container of mixed berries. "You keep eating these." "Still with the berries?" "Still with the berries," Jake said, serious now. "They're one of nature's strongest anti-inflammatories. They reduce joint pain, improve flexibility, and help your body move smoothly again. This isn't a one-and-done fix. It's daily armor. Every bite matters." Michael picked up a raspberry and popped it in his mouth. "Tart and juicy. I used to run 5 miles every morning," he said quietly. Jake looked at him. "Then let's make sure you still can, maybe not 5 miles, but strong, pain-free steps. That's the goal." For the first time in months, Michael believed it might be possible. The collagen key. A few days later, Michael met Jake at their favorite weekend spot, an old walking trail that curved around a peaceful lake. The sun shimmered on the surface, and the air was crisp with the scent of pine and fresh earth. They walked slowly, Michael pacing himself. "Feels like I've got rubber bands for tendons," he muttered. Jake chuckled, tossing a bag of mixed berries to him. "Snack for the trail. But today, we're not just talking antioxidants, we're talking structure. Ever heard of collagen?" Michael raised an eyebrow. "Like the stuff in those overpriced face creams Emily uses?" Jake laughed. "Yeah, but your muscles and joints care about it even more than her skin does. Collagen is the scaffolding that holds your body together. Your tendons, your joints, your ligaments, they're all built with it." "And let me guess," Michael said, "I'm not making as much of it anymore." "Bingo," Jake replied. "As you age, collagen production drops. That's why your joints get stiff, your muscles lose their bounce, and healing takes forever. But here's the cool part, berries can help restore that balance. Michael looked down at the raspberry in his hand like it was a secret weapon. Vitamin C, Jake said. It's the fuel your body uses to make collagen. And berries are full of it. So, it's not just about reducing pain, it's about rebuilding? Exactly. You're not just stopping the damage, you're reinforcing the foundation. Michael let that sink in as they continued walking. Each step still a little slow, but maybe not as heavy. The idea that his body could still repair, still grow stronger, it lit something inside him. Hope. Daily defense. Michael stood in his kitchen, staring at the small pile of berries on the counter like they were tiny soldiers reporting for duty. Blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, fresh, vibrant, full of promise. He pulled out a blender. "You're gonna be my breakfast now," he mumbled. Into the blender went Greek yogurt, a splash of almond milk, a handful of oats, and a generous cup of berries. He hit the switch. The machine roared to life, spinning the ingredients into a deep purple smoothie. He took a sip. Not bad. That became the ritual. Every morning, same time, same corner of the counter. Sometimes he mixed it up with oatmeal, sometimes added a scoop of protein. But the berries stayed. After 2 weeks, he noticed something subtle. Getting up from the couch didn't require as much effort. The tightness in his knees felt less angry. It wasn't a miracle, but it was a shift. One afternoon, Jake stopped by and saw the blender cup in the sink. Well, he said, grinning. Looks like someone's taking his daily dose of muscle fuel. Michael shrugged. But there was a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. I figured if I can't run like I used to, I can at least build like I used to. Jake nodded, impressed. That's the key. Consistency. These small, daily choices, they stack up. You're not just easing pain, you're protecting your future mobility. Michael looked out the kitchen window at his backyard, where the old basketball hoops still stood. Maybe, just maybe, he'd shoot a few hoops again someday. Mind and muscle. It had been about a month since Michael started his berry ritual. The aches hadn't vanished, but they were quieter now. He moved with more ease, less stiffness in the mornings, fewer grimaces after a walk. But something else had changed too. He noticed it one evening while reading a book he'd left unfinished for months. The words flowed. His focus held. His mind wasn't foggy like it had been lately. The next day, at Jake's place, he brought it up. Hey, is it just me, or do berries do something for your brain too? Jake smirked. You're catching on. Those antioxidants you've been loading up on, they don't just protect muscles, they clear up mental fog. Better focus, stronger memory, quicker thinking. Berries feed your brain like they feed your body. Michael leaned back, eyebrows raised. So I'm getting stronger and sharper? Exactly, Jake said. Most people don't realize it, but physical strength and mental clarity go hand in hand. You lose one, the other usually follows. Michael thought of how tired he used to feel, not just physically, but mentally. Like he was moving through molasses. Now, there was a lightness returning. A sense of presence. That night, he wrote in his journal for the first time in years. Just a few lines, but the words came easily. Legs feel stronger. Mind feels clearer. Like I'm waking up again. Fueling the future. Saturday morning, Michael met Jake at the local farmer's market. The stalls were full of color, fresh vegetables, handmade goods, sizzling breakfast tacos. But Jake led him straight to the seafood vendor. "Salmon," he said, pointing to the glistening pink fillets. "This is your next move." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Fish?" "I'm still wrapping my head around berries." Jake chuckled. "Think of salmon as berry-level support, but for muscles, joints, and your heart. It's packed with protein, which helps rebuild muscle. And the omega-3s? They fight inflammation like nothing else." Michael picked up a fillet, examining the marbling. "So this stuff is like joint lube?" Jake laughed. "Pretty much. It keeps things moving smoothly. Plus, it boosts circulation. That means more oxygen and nutrients to your muscles, and less of that heavy, dragging feeling in your legs." Michael thought about those days when even standing felt like a workout. "And how often do I need it?" 2 to 3 times a week makes a difference, Jake said. Grill it, roast it. Throw it in a salad. Doesn't have to be fancy. Even canned works in a pinch. That night, Michael gave it a shot. He seasoned the salmon with lemon, olive oil, and herbs. Then paired it with roasted veggies. As he sat down to eat, something about the simplicity of it all felt right. Like his body finally had what it had been asking for. He didn't expect miracles, but he knew this was a step toward strength that would last. The hidden power of eggs. It was a quiet Sunday morning. Michael cracked 2 eggs into a pan. The sizzle echoing in his kitchen. It wasn't anything fancy, just a quick scramble with spinach and a slice of whole grain toast. But something about it felt grounding. Jake had mentioned it offhand during one of their talks: don't underestimate eggs. They're like nature's multivitamin. At the time, Michael had shrugged it off. But now, with his legs growing stronger and his energy holding steady through the day, he wanted to know more. He did some digging. Eggs weren't just protein, they were complete protein. Meaning they held every essential amino acid his body needed to rebuild muscle. As he read, he found even more. Vitamin D, critical for strength and balance. Choline, for brain-muscle communication. B vitamins, for lasting energy and reduced fatigue. Michael paused at one sentence. Low vitamin D levels are directly linked to muscle weakness, poor coordination, and increased risk of falls. He looked down at his legs. Once stiff, slow, unsure. Now, steadier. Stronger. Not perfect, but improving. Every little thing counts, he murmured. Eggs became his go-to. Some mornings scrambled, other days boiled on the run. Occasionally folded into a veggie omelet. He wasn't chasing a diet, he was building a foundation. The kind of foundation that would keep him walking with confidence, standing tall, and staying independent. Legs for life. Spring rolled in with longer days and gentler mornings. Michael stood at the edge of his porch, coffee in hand, watching the breeze ripple through the trees. He'd just come back from a walk, not a struggle this time, but something that actually felt good. He still remembered the stiffness, the silent frustration of losing strength bit by bit. It hadn't vanished overnight. But over the past few months, something deeper had changed: how he cared for his body. How he listened to it. Berries in his breakfast. Salmon twice a week. Eggs most mornings. Small things. Powerful things. And it wasn't just about muscles anymore. His joints ached less. He felt steadier on uneven ground. His thoughts came quicker. Conversations were easier to follow. Even his heart, both physically and emotionally, felt lighter. Jake stopped by later that day with 2 smoothies in hand. "You're looking good, Mike." Michael took one, grinning. "Feel better than I have in years." Jake nodded. That's what happens when you stop waiting for things to get worse, and start building strength where you stand. They clinked smoothie cups. Laughing. Michael thought about the future, not as something to fear, but something he was walking into with intention. His legs, once hesitant, now carried him forward with steady rhythm. You don't wait to get strong after things fall apart, he thought. You build it into the moments you live today. And so he did. One berry. One step. One strong, supported day at a time.